Hi there, my friends. I had done a little video on a getting to know you experience, just to tell a bit of my life story, because many of you are coming into my channel, and I thought it would be helpful for you to know a little bit about me. So I had done, excuse me, the first um, story about my life. And I thought after, and a few friends confirmed it, that it was a little bit whitewashed, that I didn't really go into some of the struggles, sort of the good, the bad, and the ugly on one's faith journey. So I thought I'd redo it and just maybe be a little bit more real or authentic about some of my life experiences. So I guess I would start. It's very interesting. My mom's mom, uh, prayed for me when I was just a babe in arms, and my aunt, who was living at her mom's home at the time, said that as a baby, I was staying with grandma, and she lifted me over the kitchen sink and dedicated me not only to God but to God's service. So that was the beginning of all of this, I guess. But it was a journey because I was brought up in Mississauga in Applewood Acres, a very suburban part of Toronto, I guess. But it was very enclosed. I really had a wonderful home, but it was very enclosed. It wasn't very inclusive or multicultural. It was all sort of middle class folk doing their thing. And I remember sitting at grade 12 looking out the window and saying, like, this kind of life just doesn't work for me. And so as soon as I finished high school, I was off on my quest. And I ended up taking a year off between high school and university, but then eventually I did go to Peterborough, to Trent University, to take the Native Studies course there. And in that program, it was wonderful. I don't know why there is such a connection or something in me about the Native people, but there is, and so that's what drew me to that program. But I got sidetracked into the drug culture of the time, and I was certainly in the countercultural, and it's just a wonder. Like, I look back and I can just see that I was really protected in that situation, where it could have been a lot worse. But anyway, I got out of it, and I had asked a friend's wife who was in this sort of druggy counterculture stuff, who was going to a prayer group in a Catholic church, and I asked if I could go with her sometime. And she, after she picked herself up from the chair she fell over, um, she said, "Of course." So I was faithful to that prayer community for the longest time, and I knew that that's what I was looking for. There was a supernatural power present of love, and I just surrendered myself and gave myself to God through that prayer group. Now, I was raised in the Anglican Church, but it didn't seem to speak to my longing, and I was searching for something, and went through various things to find what I was looking for in this Catholic charismatic prayer group. So from there, I went off to. I thought, well, I'd really like to spend some time in a First Nations community. So I wrote everyone I knew, and there was only one response, and that was from a sister, Eva, who was up in Long Lac. And she said, "Well, come on up." So I met her, um, because she was on a 30-day retreat in Mississauga at the retreat house there. And I met her, and we went up on the train together. And I plucked up my courage and I said, "Sister, I'm coming to live in this community with you, but I'm not Catholic." And she said, "Oh, for God's sake, Wendy, if this is of God, who cares?" Well, a woman after my own heart. So anyway, we remained wonderful friends throughout. She died a couple years ago. But that experience in Long Lac was life changing for me. People that were so hospitable to my coming and just living among them, experiencing their pain, teaching me in different ways about life in the bush and creation and living in harmony with creation, although the pain of the trauma of their experience through the school system and so on was very sad and tragic and continues to be. But I've maintained such friendships with these wonderful people from Long Lac. I just feel so blessed that I was able to have that experience. But I felt it was time to come back, and so I came back to Mississauga, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But there was a job opening at the drop-in center at Square One, so I applied for it, and I got the job. So coming from the bush of Long Lac and then into Square One Shopping Center, at that time it was the largest mall or shopping center in Canada. So it was quite an interesting juxtaposition and very interesting because I'm not a shopper. It's not anything that interests me. And so to be plucked in the middle of this major shopping center. So I was there for 10 years and it was sponsored by the local Christian churches and just as a listening post really for people to come and share their stories and there was just all sorts of opportunities to reach out and to care for people and to offer different kinds of programs. And honestly, it was just an incredibly wonderful experience for me. But after 10 years, I burnt out because I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the Enneagram, but I'm a two, which is the caregiver, and I had no boundaries. So I was there just to help anyone who came through the door and just to be available. And so that totally burnt me out. So I needed to, when I was hiding under my desk and looking out, not wanting to see anyone, I said, I think it's time for me to take my leave from here. So I left and I took 3 months. I went back up to Long Lac for a month and went fishing for a month with my friend sister Eva and the community came out and met us there. And I went down to California to visit my aunt for a month. And then I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I did end up going to a retreat house, and I was offered a job there. Uh, and I stayed for a year and a half or so. But it was really a difficult. So I had come from just a rip roaring, wonderful, affirming kind of place of ministry at the drop in at Square One. And I went into this place, and maybe I had some pride that needed to be dealt with or something, but the people there were in a very alternate kind of spiritual path than I was, and a lot of demonic stuff they saw everywhere and whatever, and that just wasn't my kind of spirituality. And so anyway, it was very uncomfortable. And I was under great judgment there, feeling sensing that I had a lot of problems. So anyway, I left, and then I went. So I'm not sure what that was all about, but that was not easy time in my life. But I went off on a search, and I remember being really angry at God. I thought, like, if this is how you treat people that are serving you, like, who needs it? So, so, but then in my journey through that experience, it was like I needed to. There was a shift going on in me in understanding my spiritual life and who God was and so on. So I did a lot of things in about 10 years. I finished a degree in religious studies, and then I did a lot of offering myself to various community services and Christian organizations and that kind of thing. Coordinated the church at the CNE for a couple of years and did this and that. Um, but I knew I was getting ready to land somewhere. But I think the internal thing that was going on in me, like my experience of who God is and was in my life was shifting from this sort of parental kind of figure, uh, um, uh, parent-child kind of relationship to a co-creative companionship. And I think I really needed the pain to get my attention that this isn't, you know, to wrestle it out and figure it out. So then I was going to, oh, I was in Burlington, and they had a ministry that was evolving at the Burlington Mall. And the priest at the Anglican church there hired me as youth worker, thinking that I would be the natural to look after that new drop in. And so I was on the board and I was, helping get it set up and all that kind of thing. And so what happened was they got this committee to do the hiring of who was going to be the director of it. And everyone said, "Oh, Wendy, of course it's going to be you." Well, they hired someone else. Oh, I was just devastated. And I thought, "Oh my God, okay." So another blow. But, in retrospect, you look back at these things and you think, thank God, like, I've been there, I've done that, I've got the t-shirt. Like that's really not where I was being called. But it was a blow at the time to my ego and all that kind of stuff. So so I ended up going for spiritual direction at Loyola House, which is a retreat house in Guelph, Ontario. And I did the Ignatian, annotation 19 it's called. So it's the retreat and daily life, but it takes about a year to go through all the exercises. And my spiritual director there kept talking about this program at Regis College. And so I said, that sounds very intriguing. So she said, "Oh my God, Wendy, that is just so you. Yes, that is just so you." So I went off to Regis, and it's a Jesuit college. And honestly, it just was the most pivotal and wonderful experience because it just helped me name my internal experience of my spiritual life in God. And I was with you only got into that program if you had 10 or 12 years of ministry experience and all that kind of stuff. So these were people that were coming in from all over the world who had all sorts of interesting experiences. And so anyway, it was just wonderful just to be able to just be with these people, and to every paper we did, we had to theologically reflect on our own personal experience, as well as the subject matter that we were engaged in. So it just really gave me the basis and helped me really name that experience. So after Regis, friends that I met there have a retreat house up in Caledon, Mount Alverno. It's no longer there anymore. But it ended up that my husband and I went there to look after the place, and we were there for 7 years. And it was on many levels a wonderful experience, because that's where I learned about Francis of Assisi. And the friars there were teaching the Franciscan spiritual direction charism globally. And so I was so fortunate to be able to plug into all of that and be part of that. So I fell in love with Francis of Assisi. He's my guy. He's been been a major influencer in my life and journey. So unfortunately, there was a lot of dysfunction in that place in terms of the accountability structures and all that was going on. Um, so it ended up that Bob and I left. With some pain and with some joy. So I thought that I was going to live out my days there, but but God has other plans often, in what we think. But I in retrospect, when I look at the 10 years I had at the drop in at Square One, it was just an incredible foundation and base for me because it was so life giving, positive. There was a good accountability structure. um, it was just all the right pieces were in place to make it work really well for 10 years. And I'm so grateful as I look back that I had the basis of that kind of experience to be taken through the other kinds of experiences that were not so good in terms of that. And I was deeply wounded and hurt and felt betrayed often and some of this stuff. But it was all part of, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it entirely, but I know that God is faithful, and I felt like Job in many times. Like when we think of the story of Job in the Old Testament, where he had everything taken away, but he never lost his relationship with God, although he fought and yelled and tried to understand what was going on. And I think that was all part of my growing up or growing in faith, to know that God is. And, God's not responsible for a lot of stuff that happens, but God is with us in the midst of the stuff that happens. And so that was one of the big learnings for me. So I then we moved up to Aurelia, which is where we live now. And we've been here 15 or 16 years. And we got a bed and breakfast. So I offered some retreats through the bed and breakfast. And Bob's a great cook, and I was the cleanup. But we worked well together in that. But my mom had a stroke, and so I needed to go down and journey with her in Mississauga through that. So we gave up the bed and breakfast, and then I've just worked independently. She was fine. She got through that, and we got her house sold, and she got comfortable in a retirement home. And so then I've just been working independently as a spiritual director and in retreat work continually. And I'm also a wedding officiant, so that's been really wonderful to be part of marriages and weddings, and just to celebrate life and commitment and love, and so that's been good. But I think Bob and I met. It's coming up 30 years, but he in our relationship, again, if I'm telling my life story, he's very much in our relationship is very much a part of that, our faith journey. We were in a lot of codependency, and we had a lot of issues that we needed to work out in that. Um, and I recognize in my journey, being the two and the caregiver, I had to let go of being the caregiver in the relationship and become my own person. And what I learned in that is sometimes when we're caregiving someone else, we disempower them from becoming who they're called to be. And I see that I think, doing that in our relationship. So in our really challenges, and we actually separated for a little bit just to really discern, what was going on. But I think that was it. Like I was enabling him, and probably him me. It's a two-way street often. But anyway, we figured that out. And I can honestly say I've got the marriage that I had always dreamed of and hoped, but it didn't come easily. Like we had to really work at it and get in touch with our stuff. So the Enneagram was really helpful, and also this book on Harville Hendrix, Getting the Love You Want. It's the imago therapy. So we did a lot of that, which really got us in touch with our core issues and what our trigger points were for each other. And how can we be a blessing to each other in that kind of way, to help each other heal. So that's really been helpful. Also, Bob. Bob has had health issues since we met. He's actually, his heart right now is at 20%. So he's uh, at the point of death a few times. So I've spent countless hours sitting in the hospital with the triple bypass surgery and the stents, and then he had kidney cancer and prostate cancer. So like it's not been without its stuff, but it's good. And I said to him, in this pandemic that we're in, I thought, like it's almost nice that your heart's at 20%, because if you were at 100%, you'd be going crazy. in in your retirement. So at least you're just sort of moving at the pace that you're used to. And he's the cook in the house. He's just been cooking up a storm for me, and so all of that's been good. So the other thing I would just like to say, that as I look at my journey, my faith journey, the work I've done, my relationship with Bob, and the kids, like I'm a stepmom and step grandma and all that. Oh, how could I forget this most important thing? The hardest thing in my family, my sister's daughter Stephanie, died 5 years ago and leaving 3 kids. So I was with her, like I was like the second mom because I didn't have kids, and so Bonnie's kids were like my kids, and so honestly, that was just really a tough journey. Um, you're not supposed to lose your child. Bonnie's not supposed to, it's out of order. But anyway, journeying with Stephanie, honestly, she was a woman of faith, and she said, "Wendy, I know where I'm going. I've had a vision of it. I see it. Um, so I'm okay. It just breaks my heart to leave my 3 kids, but so, so that was really hard. That journey with Steph and her death. So, so my life has been the good, the bad, and the ugly, but God has been faithful, and the relationship that I've had with God and the Lord has just been such an adventure. And I think I've learned that it's the inner world, the inner journey, is to just really be attentive and aware of the intimacy that the divine one longs to have and is companioning us on the journey. My core issue um, was seeking love because my dad was emotionally unavailable for me. And being a relational person, I was looking for that emotional connection with my dad. My mom was awesome. My dad was, he has his story and he came from where he came from and he did the best he could, which I understand later on. But when you're in it, you're just feeling what you're feeling. And so I think what propelled me out into the world was looking for that love, and um, and my need to be needed was all part of that. So now to know when I say to people, I am loved, I am known, and I matter. I can honestly say I've come to that place where I know experientially that's true, and I am so grateful for that. So it's certainly that's my story. And I always remember people saying, through these hard times in life, we can become bitter or we can become better. And the journey of forgiveness is a journey, and that's where true freedom lies. So thanks for listening, and um, well, that's me. God bless you. Bye.